Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 805 Uncensored Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan. Joining me is Wesley, and we also have Heather Christina Schmidt. I also have a special announcement tonight. Moving forward in 2023, Heather is going to be my full time co host, so I'm super excited about that. And then tonight with Wesley, he's going to talk all about his podcast and a few other subjects. So thank you again for joining us.
Of course. I love being on here. I love the things that you talk about, and they're definitely interesting topics, and people need to be talking about it more.
I appreciate that. So, first things first, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit more about your show and what you do?
Oh, yeah. So, my name is Wesley Nidatmab, and so my podcast I have is called Wesley's Wavelengths. And so, basically, what it's about is just dope people having conversations and sharing life stories. And so lately I've been having on a lot of music artists, but I don't limit it to that. It could be anybody. It could be some random Joe Blow down the street that I talk to and just have a conversation, just have him tell me about his life and just tell about stories and how hopefully we can make this world better.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I couldn't agree more. The purpose of my show is definitely just having anybody on that's willing to say something intelligent.
Of course.
So, how did you get into podcasting? And can you talk a little bit more about your show and how you started it?
Yes, yeah. So I actually started it because originally me and another friend, shout out to Tony, we were actually going to go in on a podcast together called The Heat Wave. It's still a heat wave, but he's doing it with someone else. But we had these ideas, but us we're kind of both leaders in our own different ways and have different creative ideas, so it just didn't make sense for each of us to kind of include our own styles. It
Mm-hmm.
felt like we need to kind of have our own podcast, so we did that. He has Heat Wave, and then I have Wesley's Wavelengths. And so my initial idea was I love meeting people, and I definitely feel like I could hold a conversation with just about anybody. And I love hearing different stories, different backgrounds, so I can empathize with different certain peoples and just get to understand like different perspectives and why someone thinks like maybe I may not agree, like 100% agree with the ideology, but I can understand why the ideology was formed. And so that's what kind of drew me to this whole podcasting.
Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
I was gonna say, yeah, I listened to your most recent episode. I think it was yesterday or the day before, and that was the thing that I picked up on is this like idea of like giving people a almost like a vehicle to tell their stories, and I think that's so needed, because like we're living in like a society where people just do not understand that anybody's experience is happening other than their own. And
Yeah.
I think that the more like creator type people that are giving like I guess agency or voice to that, to like those experiences, it's like so needed. And so when I was listening, it was the last episode that you posted, and I was just like, yeah, this is what
Mhm.
like we need, especially your local here in the
Yeah.
805. I feel like we have such an incredible amount of privilege here, where a lot of people just they don't know that anything exists outside of their worldview, and sometimes all it takes is one story about somebody's unique experience to completely change them. So that's what I just was instantly caught by with your podcast, is just that it's all about storytelling, you know, which I don't know if that really happens much anymore, you know. Uh, yeah, so I think what you're doing is great, actually.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. To add on to that, I would also say that it's extremely humanizing
Mhm.
and therapeutic to have a platform that you can go on and you can just discuss your thoughts and ideas and really open up to another person. I couldn't agree with you more, Heather. I think it's really well needed.
Yeah.
What elements do you think go into a successful interview with a guest?
So we're talking about what kind of things that I do. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm trying to like what would make a good interview. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess. How would you prepare for a successful interview? And
Okay. Yeah.
does that make
So
sense?
yeah, it does. Yeah. So
Okay.
for me, I late because most of the people I've been interviewing have been music artists. Music artists, the best way to get to know an artist is through their music, and so especially with a couple of the artists that they have some of the kind of deeper songs, I try to
Do your
find
homework.
yeah do my homework and listen to a couple songs and try to pick out what their style was and what their message was behind it. And then you can pretty much get just a conversation started by talking about songs that you think meant something to them. And from there, I think that research is the biggest part. Um, I'd say sometimes I admit I do a little too much research, but I think that I try my best to make it as humanizing as possible. And like the last one I had with OG David James, um, I had actually hit on some topics that he like really just you're connected with. One talking about his father, and because he had a song out that mentioned his father, talking about his relationship, and that happened to be a subject that he was kept dearest to him. And so it's just about trying to find the right topics that I feel like they kind of can connect with.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Do you have any podcasters that have influenced you specifically?
So I can say that Joe Rogan is the immediate like choice, the one that, had got me into the idea of podcasting and wanting to know people's stories.
Hmm.
And like we talked about earlier, Duncan Trussell, one of my favorites too. Midnight Gospel, that one, like those two, I'd say were probably my biggest ones. And it's just those ones just about meeting people and then just exchanging ideas and just being authentic. And then another like so a episode in Pacific that I think attributed to my curious mind of wanting to try to be empathetic towards others is Joe Rogan's interview with Kanye West. And
Hmm.
through that interview, like even though he's in a not the greatest mental state, you could still see the genius in him and understand like shoot, he maybe got this way because of circumstances, and you can at least try to take something from him and empathize in a sense. I mean, obviously, you're not gonna do some of the things he does. A lot of his stuff is very controversial, but you can
Yeah,
have,
we're definitely not excusing any of the anti-Semitism or
yeah,
any of
not
the Hitler praise.
yeah, not excusing any of that, but you can understand that maybe he's not in the right mindset, and there are things that got him there.
Sure, sure.
It's funny that you mentioned Joe Rogan because I used to have like the most, negative view of him, right? And then I watched this interview he did with Bob Lazar, um, who, if you're not familiar with him, he worked on Area 51. Is that it?
Hmm.
And he worked with like some of these, UFO or whatever crafts, testing them for the government. And he like came out and wrote a book and did an interview in the 80s. And then like all this time goes by and he goes on Joe Rogan and reveals that the government has been like harassing him and like following him. And but it was that same thing that you're talking about where he's like sharing Bob Lazar's kind of like side of the story.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily believe everything that Lazar is saying, but you're also like, okay, well, there is a human being here.
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so now I don't know what my feeling is about Joe Rogan now
I
because
was I was a fan of his like 3 or 4 years ago, and then when COVID happened and he started just, in my view at least, you guys might not agree with this, he started going down this right wing rabbit
yeah,
hole,
Mm-hmm.
and he started getting really conspiratorial, and like this is right around when he kept on talking shit about California,
Mm-hmm.
how the homeless population was out of control. Meanwhile, he was living in Bell Canyon in the hills, not having to do anything with it, making
yeah,
boatloads of money. Just talking about how he needed to go to Texas because they had all this freedom and they weren't so COVID lockdown friendly. And just, it really turned me off. And then
Yeah.
he had people on like Gavin McInnes, who was the head of the Proud Boys.
mm,
And, but, you know, to give him some credit, yeah, like the interviews with Bob Lazar, when he has just like his comedian friends on, when he's not talking about subjects that he doesn't know anything about, that's when I like him, you know? When it's just
yeah,
when when he's diving into subjects like COVID, when he's talking about like the
Yeah.
left or anti-capitalism, anything that it's clear that he's not well scholared in, it's it just really turns me off and it's uncomfortable for me to watch. But those interviews with Lazar, for example, I do like, and every once in a while I still will come across an interview on his show that I like and enjoy.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on like that point of there just are some interviews that you just can't really watch because of what he talks about and just
Yeah, or just the
like I
people. I'm just like, why would you have
yeah.
that person on?
Yeah, I'd say that another one that so I think maybe there was a Snoop Dogg one he had that I didn't like too much because they didn't really end up talking about him so much. It was just like everything else. And I'm more of the person who wants to know of I'm like, okay, like let's talk about like is Snoop Dogg gonna reveal something about himself? But it was like just like a conversation about jujitsu and then like the government and other things, and I was like, what is this? So
Right,
yeah,
like if you have Snoop Dogg on, you want to hear Snoop Dogg talk about being a musician or
yeah,
like smoking weed or something that he knows a lot about. You don't want to hear Snoop Dogg talk about politics.
yeah,
Like no disrespect to Snoop Dogg, that's just not his lane.
yeah, no. But there is another episode or a couple of episodes that I would say that are good listens. The Mike Tyson interview.
Mm.
oh
That
yeah,
one was a really good one. I like you could.
When he talks to Steve-O,
Mhm. Yeah, no, but there are good ones here and there. It's just not all of them are the ones that you hope they'd be. Like most of the time, it's just him like telling the other person about like the things that he's like, oh, like hunting and this, that, and that. So
yeah, and he just like, I don't know, with Rogan, you know, he's a comedian, he's a cage fighter, commentator, and all that. So he's the type of guy where he's just going to agree with the last person that he spoke to. And so
yeah,
he'll have on somebody that's far left, like Abby Martin, and then he'll have on like fucking Matt Walsh. Like he had Matt Walsh on recently. Heather, you're cracking up because you know who that is. And I'm
yeah,
just like, why the fuck would you have him on? This is an open, extreme transphobe. He's extremely
yeah.
against
He's really crazy.
LGBTQ people. He put out this documentary recently titled "What Is a Woman."
Yeah,
oh,
It's just like,
jeez,
why, Joe? Come on.
he is all sorts of things, but it's.
But
I,
yeah, we'll get back to the main premise of the show. What what's a commonly held belief about podcasting that you passionately disagree with?
mm, well, at the top of my head, I can't think of any common ones. Just throw one at me that you
I
like in
would
terms.
say that people are under the impression that you can just set up a microphone and talk.
yeah,
Like it's
Mm,
not that fucking easy. You have to have
no, no,
interesting things
yeah,
to say. You have to have good quality audio. You have to have a good format.
yeah,
It's not as easy as just plugging a couple of things in and talking.
yeah. No, even the talking too. I'd say that like just because I am very much a conversationalist, I was never really a person who could easily strike up a conversation just like that. It
Hmm.
took a lot of years to just kind of be able to even build confidence just to be able to talk to some random person, that too in itself is something that takes time. But I mean, yeah, no, it's not easy. I have a team that helps me out. I have an audio guy who he does all the audio automation and making sure it sounds good, and I'm just like, thank you for what you do because I don't know anything about audio.
Yeah, I feel that. I had a producer for a while. He goes by C Money. Shout out to C Money. He's
Yeah.
over in Maine, but yeah, I've just been editing stuff by myself lately because he's just so busy. He got a new house and he's got a wife and all that, but he kicks ass. He's been in punk rock for like
Yeah, he's
30
in a
years.
band now. It's pretty cool.
Hey,
Yeah,
there's some.
he's been playing music since like the early 90s.
There
Yeah.
you go. There's something about people and being in bands and just being able to be good at audio and all that. Because my audio guy, he's in a band too, and so okay, well, one of these days I'm gonna have to start learning myself because who
Just
knows?
know it sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, who are a couple of your favorite guests that you've had on?
Um. Ooh, it's a tough one. I feel like. See, I feel like when say comes to my favorites, I'm gonna start hearing from everyone else like, man, I'm not one of your favorites or whatever. Um,
I could
but
rephrase the question. I guess what's one of your favorite most recent interviews?
okay, okay, yeah.
So we don't have to
Fav-
single anybody out.
yeah, favorite most recent interviews. I'd say that my most one of them, my recent one that is gonna be out. I'm behind on audio, so it won't be out till Monday.
Hmm.
But with OG David James, because um, I felt like he gave a lot of long-winded answers, but you could tell that he had a lot of life experience and he had a lot to say. And so I think I only asked him four questions,
Hmm.
but it was an hour because he just went 10 minutes at a time per question. But there was a lot of information in there. So if I really wanted to pick and all the information, I probably would be talking to him for maybe 3 hours.
Yeah, I've easily had 3 hour podcasts. Heather knows.
Oh my gosh.
They,
It's true. But
yeah,
I also saw that you have a huge lineup coming up too. I saw you post on
Yeah.
Instagram. Your
mhm.
lineup is
Yeah.
so long, your list.
Yeah. I mean that's me. So I sometimes if I see someone on Instagram that I think is cool, I just reach out to him and be like, hey, I have this podcast. It's Wesley's Wavelengths. It's about people. Would you like to be on it? And
Wow.
then
Yeah.
I think I've only got turned down twice.
Wow.
And
Mm.
so everyone has been down with it. So that's the cool part. And even so, there's this guy that I met in LA at his tattoo shop, and I'm gonna have him on the podcast. But when I put him on the list, he shared it, and when he shared it, he had people hitting him up like, "There's a
Wow.
podcast. How do I get in?" And he's like, "Hit my homeboy up," and so I got five people from that, and
Wow.
so
Oh,
I
that's
was
great.
yeah,
It's
so
the
I was like,
power of networking.
Hmm.
yeah, it really is.
Yeah, so I just in general love the podcasting community, especially here locally in the 805.
Yeah.
I've come across so many just great people, like both of you. You
Of
know,
course.
Yeah.
there's just so many beautiful souls out there.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
getting back to that, there's so many people that have something to say. And I didn't even really, that was my own privilege, is not recognizing the number of people that have a story that they want to tell,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's everyone wants has a story to tell. That's the one thing that I feel is just so interesting because nobody is alike. You could even brothers, their stories are not gonna be the same.
hmm
Even
Exactly.
so really anybody down the street
it'd be
once
weird, right? It'd be
yeah.
weird if we had a world where everybody had a similar upbringing and had similar interests. Like, fuck that. That would be really
No.
boring.
it would be, and that's what makes just conversations between people interesting, because we're all different. And I mean, even just like some people, I just feel like it's just, I feel like I don't even know where I was going with that thought, but I feel like I was going on to something important. But my main point is that, yeah, the world is full of different people, and that's what we connect with most, because we like to hear different stories and just get different perspectives.
And
Right.
I think that, like, I know you said you're gonna have a tattoo artist from LA, but it seems like, are you pretty Ado, like Ventura County?
Yes, yes.
And I feel like that's one of the things where, people are always talking about East County versus West County. And I feel like in the East County, we have a lot of those people that are all living the same life, right?
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like myself, you start hearing the stories of other people, often from other areas of the community or other areas of the county, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's
Do
other
you
stuff
think,
going on around here. It's
Heather, do you
scary.
think that there's a connection there between material conditions?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I think too. I think
Oh
people
yeah,
that are in more wealthier and
absolutely.
privileged areas have much more identical lifestyles
Absolutely.
than people that come from lesser
Yeah,
socioeconomic backgrounds.
Absolutely. I
100%. Yeah, I
totally
definitely can
agree.
agree with that. I mean, even you talking about Oxnard and just it being just a big just melting pot of just different cultures.
Hmm.
People come
Yeah.
from all over. It's Oxnard's almost like our LA in a sense. And
Hmm.
so that you get like Latinos, Hispanics, you but different types too. And
Hmm.
then you get like different islanders and all the whole different aspects. And so
Yeah, you got like a
it's
walk-in people that are indigenous. You got
yeah.
Chumash
Yeah.
people. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Oxnard is just a melting pot of cultures and ethnicities and nationalities. Can you tell me what your ideal setting for creativity and thought generation looks like? And also, I'd like you to kind of give the sights and sounds. What do the senses look like there?
Ooh, I
What's
like this. I
yeah? What's
like
the
this question
aesthetic?
a lot. Yeah, so to be real with you, my ideal setting for creativity is somewhere out in nature and where there's like nobody around, and just like the simplest sounds, birds chirping, maybe a little wind,
Hmm.
and just it just feels like, and this greenery. There's a spot that I'm actually thinking of doing my first episode of the year at. So I'm going to start doing outdoor podcast, and the first one, it's going to be a special episode with me and my childhood buddy. It's he was on the first episode. So which one you have to find out which one of the, because there was two people in the episode, but who it is, you have to find out, wait to find out. But the idea of it is we're going to have the interview on a cliff in the trail, and we're just gonna be talking, and throughout it's gonna be like a video. So throughout the video, there's gonna be just clips of us on the hike, and it's just I don't know how best to describe it than just like it's gonna be a good one. I say my creativity is all over the place sometimes. Sometimes I'll get inspiration by looking at like a trash can, or just looking at the door, just random things, and I'll be like, oh, okay. Like I I I really like the art of creating.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. So I've been wanting to do some outdoor podcasts myself. Like I've always just kind of envisioned having a couple people just sitting around like a campfire,
Yeah.
uh, just talking about all kinds of different subjects and just kind of hearing the crackling in the background, and then the cherry on top would be like some distant crickets.
Yes, 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 that too. I feel like just giving that sense that you're in the conversation with them.
Yeah, because it's all interconnected. When you have a sense of connection to spirituality, when you have a sense of connection to nature and mankind,
Mhm.
it's when you feel whole as a person. Because ego isn't just about being selfish. Ego isn't just about thinking of your own ambition. Ego is when you're disconnected from everything, when you're disconnected from nature, when you're disconnected from the universe.
I agree with
It's
that.
it's deep the fuck down.
I agree with that 100%. I feel like when I'm not in nature, and I feel like that's when I've got much more of an ego, like a bad ego. And but when I take myself to my favorite spots, um, and one spot I'll say there's a spot that over um it's in between Emmawood and the Ventura campground. It's like a
Mm.
little footbridge. I go there whenever I'm trying to just get some clear my thoughts or whatever. And when I'm there, I'm just able just to feel free and just take in nature. Sometimes there'll be dolphins that'll go over the waves, and it's just a very calming area to be in.
Right, and it's scientifically backed, right? When they
Mm-hmm.
study this, they indicate that when people go back into nature, their anxiety and their stresses almost immediately dissipate, particularly like when you're in a forest because you have the expansion of oxygen with all the plants around you.
Yeah,
But like when you're somewhere like a place like the beach and you're barefoot, like the second your feet hit the sand, it's just a complete feeling of sublime. It's uh, not to sound dramatic, but it's almost like nothing else is better than that at the moment.
exactly.
You're just completely in the present moment, and everything feels great and how it's supposed to be and content.
Yeah, no, I love nature. I So the funny thing, I feel like my end kind of situation where, like, let's say I've done what I wanted to do and all of that, and like my retiring, like my ideal life would be me out there somewhere, maybe a ranch, something like that, living off the land and just
Hmm.
r- not really even needing to go to town, and just
Yeah.
having my close friends around, and like be
Right.
able to check in with people every once in a while, but not feeling the need to like go out and like live it up like crazy. Having the
Right. Like,
friends, you know.
when you're on social media, you see all these like TikToks, for example, where there are people that are talking about how they just have all these goals of living in this mansion in Manhattan. And I'm like, fuck that, dude. I just want a cabin in the woods.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
Even a cabin
Like you're
in the woods.
saying, living off the land, having a few friends that are close to you, but having your own space and feeling connected to the land and feeling connected to nature, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're not
Yeah.
supposed to be living in skyscrapers. We're not supposed to be in office buildings for 40 hours a week,
Yes.
staring at computer screens. That's not why we were put on this planet.
Yes.
For me, it's just like somewhere that is just like quiet.
Hmm.
Like, we lived in LA for about 2 years, and when we moved back to Ventura County, I was like, why is it so quiet here? But then, but then when I go, like, if I go back to the Midwest to visit my family, um,
She's from Chicago, by the way.
Oh wow.
but I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
like if if you're like thinking that Ventura County is quiet, like it is, you're in like a tunnel with no outside sound at all in the Midwest. It is so quiet in the Midwest, and there's open, or when we used to go up to oh hey.
That's my nephew.
When we used to go up to Oregon to visit.
Well, go, go. I'm busy. Sorry
When we
about
used
that.
to It's okay. When we used to go up to like Oregon as another example to visit like family, you go through like a space between California and like Klamath Falls, and it is just woods
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
trees and silence.
Yeah, been
Yes.
up there a few times.
And
Yeah.
so like LA to here is quiet. It's like very quiet here compared to LA. But then you get up there or out to the Midwest and it's like silent. And that for me is like just silence. You know? Maybe it's because I have 3 kids and it's always very loud at my house, except for now when they're none of them are home or what, but just the silence, like
Yes.
that to me is what I feel like I'm most connected with anything or any like I can have a better conversation when it's silent,
Yeah,
you know?
right. Because you can actually take a second to think
Yeah,
and and just kind of
exactly.
decompress and
Yeah.
absorb the environment around you versus just constant distraction and stimulation. You
Yeah.
can't formulate clear thoughts. It's impossible.
You mentioned TikTok. I saw a TikTok of a couple that built a house like in Wisconsin and they intentionally built it with no internet.
Oh.
And
Interesting.
these people are like but they were posting because like 10 years later they like everything is so connected they had to get Starlink because
Yeah, you just can't
they
do that
literally
anymore. You
they
can't have
couldn't
no
yeah
internet.
they couldn't fund like their lifestyle without like they couldn't even pay their mortgage without being able to connect to the internet for
Uh,
work or whatever.
Right.
yeah.
But they had originally built this house to have no connection to internet specifically so they could have that peace, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
Yeah.
not have that distraction. Um,
That
that's probably an ideal thing too is no internet.
We say we don't want internet, but really we can't live without it.
Yeah. Well, how
no,
else would
we've
you podcast? You're sitting and talking on a podcast
I
about
know.
internet, but how else would you podcast?
We'll keep it on tapes.
You
Keep it
gonna
on
I
do it over the
tapes.
radio?
exactly, and I definitely wouldn't be able to publish it. I wouldn't be
Yeah,
able to tell anybody about
or
it.
share it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's the one thing too that I told myself at the end of the day is if no one really likes it, I at least got to meet someone new. And like my original that I feel like um mantra really is that like I hope like someone learns from it. Like not only do the audience learn from it, but the guest and me myself learn something from the conversation as well. And so it's just really about like just being in present in the conversation and just not worrying about if someone's gonna ever listen to it or like it could just be just we're the only two people that ever know about this podcast and you know I'll be good with that because I like made a connection with them.
Yeah.
Right, and at the end of the day, you're doing something that you love and you're trying it.
Yeah.
Most people out there have all these goals and ambitions, but either it's because of their own self-doubt or whatever, they never actually try it. So
Yeah.
you can always, at the end of the day, know that you put yourself out there and that you try to accomplish your goals, and there's something to seriously be said about that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how do you balance work and life?
Well, I definitely feel like balancing work and life is
Important?
it's important. Yeah. And how I do it, I feel like I detach myself from so how I think of it is like I detach myself from the task. So I don't try to bring work home with me and I don't try to bring podcast. I mean, podcast is like something. It is nice, but I feel like you have to also get a break from that as well. So I
Hmm.
detach myself from it, and like I know people they get like stressed and like oh like work has me mad and like this that and that and like you don't understand and they bring it home with them and they're thinking about it constantly where they just when you go to work you just go in there and get everything that you need done in that setting and then you don't allow yourself to like get mad after work. Just forget about work.
Mm.
It's still, I mean, yeah, it's still gonna be there if you are putting in the work in at work and whatever you're doing, but that's just kind of how I treat it. It's just like detach myself from that thing that I was doing. Like where I work, do I mean I kind of am a little bit of a realtor, but that's kind of been going slow. But I also work at the 99 cent store as a key holder. But even that, like I work there and I don't try to bring any of that, like any of the negativity home with me. I I work, and if something gets me, even when something that bad happens, a situation happens, and I'll get mad for like 5 seconds, and then I'll detach that experience like, oh, it happens, and just keep on going about my day, and not try not to let it get to me.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I more or less approach it the same way. You know, you're gonna have good days and bad days in the office or wherever you work. If you're blue collar, if you work in a warehouse, whatever. But it's definitely important not to take your bad experiences or even your good days straight home with you at work, because I think
Hmm.
that work and home life need to always be separated. But
Yeah.
it's difficult in the United States, right? Because your ability to stay employed and your ability to make money at your job is how you keep a roof over your head.
Yes. Yes.
You know, the best advice I ever got was from my first job at 16 at Wendy's. I worked at like, you know, like everybody's first job is fast food, right? And the manager, he told me that when he gets home every single day, he changes in the garage. Like he hangs his clothes, his sweats or whatever
Hmm.
in the garage, pulls in, takes off his work clothes, and he said, first of all, my clothes smell like gross French fries, and my wife doesn't want that in the house. But second of all, what I do when I do that is I remind myself, when I take off these clothes, that's it. That's all I'm doing with this
Hmm.
job. And now I'm changing into my home clothes and I'm at home and I'm not even going to think about it. And that is the best advice I ever got, because it's like reminding you that you almost have to like compartmentalize and say, okay,
Hmm.
the box is
Hmm.
closed. That's it. It's over for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I have had a lot of periods of time where I've like forgotten that,
Hmm.
and that's when I'm more stressed out, more
Hmm.
unhappy, my relationships are less fulfilling. But when I'm able to keep that balance, like that separation, like you mentioned, um, it's so much better, you know, for you. But I think also to your point about working to keep a roof over your head, I think it's harder for people now too that work from home
Mm.
to keep
Hmm.
that balance.
Right,
Yes. That.
right. That's an excellent point.
Hmm. Yeah, no, so I definitely feel like pandemic is when you definitely felt it the most. I actually had an internship um, during the heat of the pandemic. The premise of it was that you were basically in charge of a branch of their business, which is house painting, and it was your duty to go and market it yourself, get your own clients, do appointments, estimates, and then not only did you do the business side of it, but you had to do the project managing, executing the job. But like it was a whole lot, and this was back in 2020. We started it literally a month before the pandemic hit. And as soon as that hit, we had to shift to online services, and we were doing over the phone estimates, everything like that. And I felt like that point was where it was starting to get to me, because it was like blending my life with the work. And no, I'm like, since I'm home, I should technically be calling to prospect. I'm not doing anything, so I should just do that. And so I just kept on doing that, but it just kind of got to me.
Yeah.
I and like I had to change the scenery to get my head clear. I did end up finishing the internship, and I learned a lot from it, and I don't think I would be where I am today without it. But just that period in time where I was at home and I was working, it had effect on my mental health and all that.
Yeah, I mean, how could it not, right?
Yeah.
There has to be a separation there. Do you have anything else that you want to add to that, Heather, or do you want me to
No.
move on? Okay. Yeah, my next question for you is: if you could write a book on any subject, what would it be about and why?
There is um a an idea I've always wanted to, like a subject that I've wanted to explore, that so mm, when I was in college, I went to Blasting Community College for 2 years, which is in Susanville, which is all the way up north. And I was staying with my uncle at the time, but he, my uncle, he's definitely someone that, like, he's like a wonder of how, like, why he works so hard and to get where he is, and like just how his brain works. So like why he works so hard. And my whole thing of like curiousness is, one, to write a book and get the research of what does it mean to have work ethic, and where does that come from, what kind of things influence it. And because I feel like he was just an exception, just like the idea that I was talking about, how not all siblings are the same. He's completely different to my dad. I'm not saying that my dad didn't, but there was things that my uncle was doing that made you wonder, like, was it nature or nurture that he had this mindset?
Hmm.
And so I was like, that's the topic I've always wanted to have, is like, is work ethic a nature or more of a nurture thing?
That's really interesting too. It also kind of reminds me of like this propaganda movement that we've been seeing in the last 2 years since COVID, which is that nobody wants to work, and
Yeah.
it it even goes beyond that too, because I feel like millennials and Generation Z in particular are singled out by that, and it's bullshit. Because if you talk
Hmm.
to people across all generations, nobody wants to work. Of course we don't. We're all burnt the fuck out. It's not just young people. Nobody wants to work 40
Yeah.
hours a week to survive. What the fuck? It's 2022.
That's funny. But it's also like what is your definition of work? Because yeah, nobody wants to go sit in like some office and just like type and report to people and shit.
Be micromanaged and
Yeah,
severely
be
underpaid.
micromanaged. But also, like, what if you define work as like what you're doing on a podcast, like
Hmm.
Yeah,
storytelling? Okay,
yeah.
well, actually, then you're going to have a lot of people that want to work because they're doing something that they feel passionate about. And so I think to
Right.
your point, Jordan, millennials and Gen Z, like, we have not been allowed to like articulate and live like our passions.
Hmm.
Well, Heather, I think really what you're getting at is like the human nature argument against socialism and communism, right? That people are naturally lazy and greedy and non creative. And it's the opposite. People are naturally creative and thoughtful
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
caring. It's capitalism and being beaten down by the system that makes them greedy and selfish.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely feel like everyone needs creativity, and whatever I mean, creativity doesn't have to be necessarily like artsy. It could be like
It can be
this.
defined however you want. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be lumped into a single definition.
Hmm. Yeah. And so like even a chef, his work, it's his creativity. So whatever you find ways that you're like always trying to find new ways to do something, that's your creativity.
Well, that's actually a perfect example because people don't think of cooking as art, but if you actually
Mhm.
study it, it's culinary arts. Like you take classes
Yeah.
for it. Cooking is absolutely an art form.
Yes, it is.
What is something that's giving you hope in the world right now?
Something that's given me hope in the world. You know, I can't think at the top of my head.
I don't know if that's a
Is
good
that
thing or a
bad?
bad thing.
I'd probably say same.
I was not ready for that. Well, I think what gives me hope is seeing people work together. Anything that's collaborative, like something especially like this, it's it gives us hope that if we work together, we can get something done.
Mhm.
And I think that while a lot of us say we understand that, we don't because there's still a lot of issues that are going on. Like if you
Yeah.
think about, I don't know, for example, climate change. That's something that if we really like say we want to band together and change it, we really can. And we could easily, someone could say, let's start a GoFundMe, and then someone with the action say, let's actually go and take this money, or let's go and start cleaning. Like just start like even this is as crazy as this sounds, I've always had this mind, like this weird thought, like, what if for 1 hour every morning I decided to pick up trash at a beach, any beach, and just do it every morning. And maybe someone will pick up the idea, like, oh, this guy's cleaning. I'll join him too. And then just get the idea people just like really want to take care of the beach.
Right.
Not
So
just,
that's called direct action.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're speaking my language.
Do you know? Do you know David? Have you heard of David Sedaris?
No, who's that?
No.
So he's a writer. He's written a number of books. They're hilarious. They're hilarious essays, mostly about his life. But he and his partner live in, I think, London for most of the year. Um, and he started like walking around and, just going on a walk for exercising. He noticed all the trash, and the UK is like
Mhm.
very trashed on the side of the road, and he just started picking it up. Well, he just kept doing it more and more and more and more. And I think that the queen, before she died, gave him some sort of a medal or honor because he had
Oh
picked up
no.
so much trash. And he writes this essay about it in one of his books, and it's hilarious the way he's talking about it, because he's just like, there is so much shit all over the ground. And he's just like this cranky old
British
a
dude.
little. No, he's not British. He's American.
Oh, okay.
And cranky old. He's gay, and he's very flamboyant. So he writes with a little bit of that like
Okay.
flamboyant flair.
Nice. Nice.
And he is hilarious. But that's what he started doing. What you just described. Just
Yeah.
going out and starting to pick up trash.
Mm.
And he was recognized for the impact that it actually made, because I think, to your point, people start paying attention and
Hmm.
doing it themselves.
Yeah.
And that is collaborative, right?
So you were just talking about England, Heather. That reminds me of a story that I heard about like a year or two ago, where there's a group of anarchists in London that help out people living on the streets, the homeless population, by squatting in mansions. And they
Wow.
just basically open up the doors of all these large abandoned buildings across London so that people who
Wow.
are living on the streets have somewhere to go
Wow.
in as a means of shelter.
Wow.
Wow.
And that's a collaboration.
Yeah, we need
That
something
is a
like that.
collaborative
Yeah,
effort.
Yeah,
that's
like
stepping the fuck up because the government doesn't care about people.
I know it's crazy. The weird thing is I feel like I have all these weird ambitions or whatever, and I'm like, if only I could get people in on these ideas too. Like the whole world could change. It really is about people coming together. But like I said, people like don't seem to get it because there's still issues here. And so
Well, I
that's
find
another thing.
yeah, I find that the more conversations that you have with people, the more like-minded individuals you actually come across.
Yeah.
Like the more people that you talk to, you'll realize, yeah, we might have different personality interests, we might have some differences here along the way, but really, we all want the same things
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
because it's the human experience. We all
Yeah.
have the same needs and desires. It's how we get there.
And I
Yeah.
think I think people are able to grow too, and it's through that conversation. Last summer when we first moved here, our neighbor, did I tell you about this, Jordan? This guy had a 1776 flag on his front
No, no, no,
lawn.
no.
When we moved in, it was like, welcome to the neighborhood. 1776. What is that? That don't tread on me
Yeah,
crap?
yeah.
Oh, don't tread on me.
Well, one of his like family members came and visited for the 4th of July. So like just a couple days after we moved here, and must have had some sort of an impact on him because every day he was wearing like a different shirt, like a Black Lives Matter shirt one day. Another was like Rise Up. Another was about women's rights and stuff like that. All of a sudden, the 1776 flag comes down. And we didn't know what happened. Well, we just got a Christmas card from them. And it's this cute little thing about people of different backgrounds and different cultures coming together in friendship, even if they weren't friends before. It was the cutest thing I've ever seen. But it made me realize that they had conversations, and out of that conversation came like growth and awareness,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're
Yeah,
talking about. That's
exactly.
wonderful. And
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
cute little card. I kept it. It's really
yeah,
it's
It's
all
so
all of
nice.
those
nice.
opportunities and people are out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I wanted to start this podcast too, because I feel like really conversations are what can bring people together. When you have honest conversation with someone and you don't judge their opinions, you realize like, shoot, I'm more like him than I thought he was. Like maybe
Hmm.
his ideas aren't as crazy as I thought. And so, but most people, they're so opinionated and they right away just like, oh, they're so wrong and they're wrong because I'm right type of thing.
Right, and I think that comes down to what ego is that I was talking about a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Yes.
disconnection from the human condition. That's a disconnection from the
I
universe.
agree.
That's I'm above all of these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's a person that's spiritually detached.
Yes, 100%.
Let's switch the conversation over to music right now. Where did your interest in music originate from, and which musicians have been most impactful and
Ooh.
influential for your development?
Ooh, this is a very good question. So, because I'd say I'd consider myself very much a person about music and just love everything about it. Um, I'd say so. Who really the first person I could think that really that got me into music was Michael Jackson. I remember when I was a kid, that used to be the only thing I'd play, and then it progressively turned into the Beatles. Do you guys remember when they did the remastered versions of the Beatles, like
Hmm.
the albums?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's around the time that I was learning about them, and I learned every song that, and so like you put any song by the Beatles, I could probably sing that song, and so like the Beatles and Michael Jackson, and then eventually turned into when I first into hip hop, it was Lil Wayne, Fireman that got me into hip hop, and the funny thing too was that I was listening to him a whole lot, and like I even listened to him on like my parents' computer, and like my mom heard it, and she's like, "What is this you're listening to?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is Lil Wayne." And there was "Drop the Road" with Lil Wayne and Eminem, and you know how Eminem is. So I was like 12, I think, and she's like, "Oh no, you
Wow.
shouldn't be listening to this music. Like, don't listen to Lil Wayne." And then my dad too, just kind of going along with my mom, goes, "Yeah, don't listen to that music too." So that even made me want to listen to hip hop more. And so it got me down to this road of listening, somehow getting to Kendrick Lamar, to getting to Nas, to Wu Tang, to discovering this whole genre of hip hop. And like, I love everything about hip hop from the almost like the artistic side of it. There are some parts of hip hop now that I don't exactly vibe with, but it goes on the same idea of still trying to be empathetic and like someone likes this music, and there's a reason why this artist in themselves came out with it. And so like I kind of somewhat appreciate it, but there are ones that like I'm like, all right, this is they're all about the like I'm all about the art for music, art form, people that are all about artistic and creativeness.
So I like that for a number of reasons, but I think mostly because so often you hear people that just have the most lazy analysis of music, where they're just like, "Oh, well, all music nowadays sucks." It's like that's not true at all. So
No.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate your nuanced perspective, and I agree with it full heartedly.
Hmm. Yeah, and no, so I definitely so like one thing too I've been wanting to explore lately, and if you guys know of any abstract rappers in the area, please send them my way. Because I've been telling people too, I'm like, I want to find a rapper who makes music that is so left field. Like, do you know like MF Doom, like Quasimodo, Madlib, those type of
Me personally, no, I don't.
so that's music that like is so left field. So like MF Doom, his whole persona is he's got a mask over his face the whole time, and that it resembles him hiding his face. Like you need to strip the the person from the music and just listen to it as a piece of art, not
Mm.
because like, oh, it's a Drake song, so I have to like it, or oh, there's a feature, I'm gonna listen to it for as the art form.
Mhm.
And with like Madlib and Quasimodo, like those ideas, like Madlib came up with the idea with this alter ego, like Quasimodo, high pitched, like different character, whole album,
Mhm.
like just based on because he was like, oh, like this is stuff that I like because it's so creatively out there. And I'm trying to find artists like that to interview because my type of creativity is very different than other people. Like it's weird, random. Like I said, I could have the randomest idea. I could look at a penny for like 10 minutes and be like, that penny has a story to tell. And and just be able to like have creative thoughts like that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think it's almost a bit of an art form in itself for you to go out and find those people that have such a different message with their music, because don't get me wrong, every musician has creativity and has talent in their own ways, but to get people that are just totally outside of the box and to give
Hmm.
them a platform, I think is really great. And I love that you do that.
Yeah, no, it's just it's that's like I guess my biggest thing, just really wanting to be about the art form of anything. That's what that people that I've been trying to find now is people who are really for the art and not
Hmm.
just for the fame or the attention. Because I'll be honest, I'm not gonna name anybody because I don't want to be like that. There were a couple of artists that I think they are in it for the attention and all of that, but there are other ones that this is their this is their life. This is they've grown up around music. Music was their safe haven, and
Mhm.
it saved them from this world of hurt of whatever it caused them. And so they take music seriously as an art form. And I want the people like my new message I'm trying to read shift it is that I'm trying to find the introverts who have never really been in the limelight, but they've had these interesting stories that you're like, oh shoot, this is what you've been doing, or this is what's been going on in your mind. Those type of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the vast majority of musicians definitely do it for the art and do it because
Mm-hmm.
they're passionate about it. But yeah, there definitely are some artists out there that are looking just to get rich and famous, and I think that that ties into the capitalist aspect of it. That ties into the entire apparatus of the music industry, which it could just be a large degree of indoctrination and propaganda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that like yeah, capitalism it definitely can make a lot of people money. The right people sometimes not the right. It's like people do it for the money, which it's a it is what it is, but I
It is a
definitely,
business at the end of the
yeah,
day.
yeah, it is. But I feel like sometimes people only think about the money and they do whatever it takes to get it, and that leaves a lot of people hurt in the end.
Right, and it really just sells yourself short, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You're just naturally not going to be as creative or inspirational to others if you're just doing it for monetary gain.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Because there's no way that you could. You're just, physically, emotionally, psychologically, etc., not as invested in it as you would be as if you were just going about it as an artist and not as somebody that's looking to profit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What are some things that bring you inner peace? How do you kind of just calm down and decompress?
Mm-hmm. So I think you've kind of talked. I've we've talked about
I mean,
so
nature, yeah,
nature is one of them, and then music too. That's another one that we just talked about.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think when everything is really bad, nature is the best, and then not even just like just pure silence, but sometimes when it's something a little mild that I there it and or even if there's not any like way to get out to nature, just put on headphones and just listen to music. Like I'd say right now, for me, calming music is like, who would I say? It depends. I have a playlist that I call Imagine. The whole idea of Imagine is just put me in a headspace of relaxing and getting in the mode of clearing my mind, and eventually maybe it'll bring an idea and imagining. But there's a whole lot of like just different like artists on there.
Let me ask you the flip side. Sorry, Heather, did you want to say something real quick?
I was gonna say that like music is almost the same thing as going into nature, though, isn't it? Because you
Yeah,
are blocking out all of that other noise
Yeah.
yeah,
and focusing on that one thing.
yeah,
Right. Like I was talking about the special feeling that you get when you were in nature earlier, but it's almost magnified and exemplified when you add music that you feel on a deep level to your soul and your core, and then you're also in that nature. That just adds an
mm,
entire new level of inner peace and happiness and interconnectedness.
yeah. Of course, yeah. I'd say that. So the reason why I say nature was probably the top one for me is because like there is nothing that really can bother me. If there's like, say if I know a spot I can go to just listen to music and nobody can bother me or nothing can really disturb me, then I'll opt for music. But sometimes like nature just it's just the go-to because that's where I feel like I said, no one can bother me type thing. You're on me.
I feel like throughout the history of the world, most people, and especially conservationists, nature has always just been a place where you can kind of just forget about everything, and then you can kind of just enter that mind space where when you were a little kid, where nothing
Yeah.
else really matters, and you can just kind of I don't know how else to describe it. Just be a kid again and let all your worries just kind of fade away into the abyss.
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you the flip side of that question. So, what are you most anxious about in the world right now, or what types of things give you anxiety?
Most things give me anxiety. I feel like that's a very tough question for me to answer sometimes. Because I'd have to really think about like when was the last time I felt anxious or
It might
uh
fluctuate too, because you might get
yeah,
anxious about things for different reasons at different times.
yeah. I guess maybe one that might be I'm feeling anxious is maybe Mm, oh yes, be anxious about something is when, um, let's say that I have something to do, but what I'm doing in the moment, like let's say, I'm having lunch, or no, maybe I'm going out to shopping with somebody, and I realize I've got to do something in 30 minutes. I get anxious about, like, because I will sometimes admit I'm not the person to say like I gotta go type of thing. I like to be like with them as long as they, like to be, and so like I'll like try to keep the conversation and
Yeah,
my anx
politeness.
yeah, politeness. And but sometimes it'll get to the point I start getting anxious. I'm like, oh shoot, it's like 10 minutes. Like, how do I end this conversation somehow and tell them I gotta go? But like, it's so interesting. Like, I don't want to go. I'm like, but I have to go. And so like, just get anxious all over the place sometimes. And they may not see it, but in my head, I'm like all over the place with just what to do.
I can relate to that. Yeah, because you always want to be nice and courteous and polite to people, but at the exact same time, if you're not assertive and you're not upfront with your
Yeah.
communication, you are going to hold yourself back, as you're suggesting.
I have
Did
a
you have any?
perfect
Yeah,
I
go
have a
ahead.
perfect example of a time that's happened. So I told you guys I worked at the 99-cent store, and I'm actually a key holder there. But there's this old man that always comes to see me because he says I have this energy. And so every time like that he comes, like he talks to me at least 10 minutes. And like it's not that like when I start doing something, he'll like stop talking to me. He follows me around, and like it gets to the point sometimes I'm thinking, okay, okay, I gotta do this, and then but then he catches me, and I'm like try like in my head I'm like, okay, like yeah, this sounds good, but in my head I'm like, I still gotta do this thing, and like I have to do it for whatever. And sometimes I even tell my coworkers like, if you see him, let me know. I mean, I feel so bad for saying that I'm trying to avoid him because he is a really nice guy. It's just he tends to talk a little too like very long-winded. So
Yeah.
eh, yeah, and he doesn't get the hints as well because like I'll be moving and like okay, I gotta go, and
One
then
word responses. That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
That's crazy.
Whoa.
yeah, of course. Doesn't get the hints though.
Yeah, that's relatable. I used to have a job when working at Best Buy. I did Oculus virtual reality demonstrations, and there would just always be old people that would just come up to me and talk to me for like 20, 30 minutes at a time. And I'm the same type of person as you, Wesley. So I'm
Yeah,
polite and I want to make sure that they know that they're heard and respected and all that, and then I'm practicing active listening. But at the
yeah.
exact same time, I got like a line of customers I need to help, and I know that you're not going to buy anything.
Yes, I know it. I know this.
So I feel that, I really do. um what's your favorite genre of music and why? Is it hip hop?
Yes, hip
Okay.
hop,
What's
100%.
your favorite thing about hip hop?
My favorite thing about hip hop is the creative expression through it. Because, like I said, it seems like there's subgenres within hip hop that are so different from each other. And I feel like in other genres, there isn't that as much because hip hop, you can get, there's um horrorcore, which is like they throw like horror elements in there and all of that. Then you have like abstract, like I said, where it's very weird, like artistic forms of art. And then like even the different like decades, 90s hip hop, it was all about the lyrics. And like if you didn't have the best bars, you couldn't get on a track. And
Yeah.
then you have now where it's a different style. And so I feel like hip hop is the one genre that has evolved and had so many different subgenres within it.
Oh, that's great. I really like your take on that. Uh, yeah, go ahead,
I
Heather.
was going to say what I've always been impressed about with hip hop is like the ability for like a lot of different artists to come together and just like hash it out and like
Yeah.
create like I don't know if you remember, but like my like big introduction to like the power of like what hip hop can do, like how people can come together through it, was in the early 2000s when Dave Chappelle's Block Party came out. And my and
Wow.
Yes.
I was dating this guy and he took me to see it at the movie theater over on John. It was on Johnson, a movie theater at the time. It's like a church now. But we went to see it and like all these people were like standing up and like dancing and like singing like at the, I don't know if it was like a Regal or an AMC or whatever, but I was just like, this is the greatest experience of my life. Like it was so cool. And I remember afterwards, I like he, we still like use CDs then because it was
Uh-huh.
early 2000s, and he like burned the whole soundtrack from that movie on a CD for me. And I remember like driving to like work and school and it was just one continuous, just like collaboration, with like Dave Chappelle, like telling jokes and like joking around with people in between. And then like people making phone calls where they're like organizing this event. And it was just, it was like, wow, you can like come together, and that there's not a lot of like other like genres that I am aware of, at least, where you have so many artists that can just like naturally come together and collaborate and put together just like that, just for the fun of just like creating in that moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was my introduction to hip hop, like my real introduction to it. And say what I mean, Dave Chappelle, I don't know, he's kind of gone over the deep end like a lot of other people have now too, but with the transphobia or whatever. But the block party was just, it was such a good event and a good movie, and it just, you know exemplified what can be done. So
Well
I
said.
love it. I love it.
yeah.
What advice do you have for anyone who's interested in starting a podcast?
I feel like I'm gonna be very cliche, and this is the funniest thing. I feel like everyone on my podcast says this, but it's the simplest thing. Just do it. Like, I feel like that's even helped me myself to start doing more things. Is that because people are like just doing it, like they just do it, and just everyone's doing it. Like I should follow that advice too. And if I have something in my head, if I am like, oh, I want to go hike in Malibu, I'm just gonna do it. Just
Mm,
Eve,
yeah.
like I'm like, because if there's one thing that somewhere I heard, I'm not sure where I heard it, but it's like you have to do when you think of something, you have to do it within 5 seconds. As soon as that 5 second pops up, your brain is gonna come with any
Self
excuse to
doubt.
say not to do it. So it's like you have 5 seconds. All right, you're either gonna do it or not. So
Hmm. Yeah.
that's the
Otherwise, you're gonna
thing.
overthink it and you're gonna talk yourself out of it. I agree.
Hmm.
So my last question for you is: where can people find you and your show, and what future projects do you have going on? Go ahead and plug all your social medias, your projects, everything that you got going on, Wesley. How can people get in touch with you?
Yes. So my main social media account is Creative Man Wes, and it's all just one word. But my um, Instagram account for the podcast is Wesley's Wavelengths, all one again. And I have my podcast on Spotify, Wesley's Wavelengths. Um, And right now, I'm working on trying to put YouTube videos out. And like I
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, I'm gonna do um a my first episode is gonna be a video where it's gonna be in Grotto Trail. We're just chilling in on off cliff, talking through
I want to come
and
to one of your outdoor podcasts, by the way. I want to be
yes,
on one of the shows.
I'm gonna try to make it a special because the way that I have it in my head is that it's something that you don't do all the time. You do it maybe every 2 weeks, once a month, or whatever. But it's definitely something that you're gonna be excited for. I mean, I'm the way I'm thinking about it. I haven't like put it onto paper or anything like that. I don't even know how you'd put it onto like the images, but like when I see it, I'm like, okay, this is where we're gonna interview, and we're gonna be walking down here and there. Like it's just stuff you just have to wait till it comes out to see it.
Perfect. Thanks, man. And thank you again for coming on the show,
Of course.
talking about your podcast and giving your beautiful perspective on all these topics. Once again, that was Wesley from Wesley's Wavelengths. Definitely give his show a listen. He's a great dude. Heather, how can people get in contact with you? Um, Tell them about your podcast and any future projects that you have going on.
Yeah, just the best way to get a hold of me is to go to schmidttalks.com. That's it. On my homepage, you can see my podcast right there, and which I'm still in the growing. I'm in the baby stages of that. But then right there is all of my social media. You can subscribe to my blog. I've been a blogger for 14 years now, which is a
Wow.
very long time. And a lot of people say that blogging is over, but I think that my blog is evidence that may or may not be true. It just depends on how you do it. So
Yeah.
schmidttalks.com.
Perseverance. Just keep on going. Follow Schmidt
Yeah.
Talks and check it out. Yeah, thank you again both for being here. As always, the 805 Uncensored is on social media. We're on Instagram at 805 Uncensored Pod. I recently deleted my Twitter because I'm just tired of all the bullshit with Elon Musk and tired of being put on lists for being an anarchist. So I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok now at 805 Uncensored Pod. We're also on YouTube if you want to catch the video edition of this podcast, 805 Uncensored Podcast. And if you have any guest suggestions, episode ideas, or if you just want to ask me a question, send me an email at 805uncensored@gmail.com. And also, just as a reminder, because it's been like an hour since we started recording, Heather Schmidt will be my regular co host in 2023. And I'm
I'm
beyond
excited.
excited for
I'm
that.
so
So
excited.
thank
Yeah.
you all so much for listening. And we have some great things coming at the future of the show. The next episode is going to be about astral projection. My friend Tammy from Florida is going to open up about her out of body experiences, dreams, psychedelics, and all kinds of great topics. So, really looking
Wow.
forward to that.
You're
And
the
I'm
best.
thank
looking
you all
forward to
again.
that.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Appreciate you guys and hope you all have a good night. Peace
Yeah,
out.
you too.